Hello and welcome to MxMLive. Today we do not have an industry person or an agency, Don, from an advertising agency, Don, but we have a very senior and veteran person in the field of media and research from the country. We have here with us Mr. Yashwant Deshmukh, a well-known face on Indian television and in the media. Before I speak to Mr. Deshmukh, I'll just introduce him to you. He's a keen follower of media and education sectors as a first generation entrepreneur. He has worked on various assignments and startups in many transitional states and societies across Asia, America, Europe, and Africa. He is very well known for his organization, CVoter, which is short for the Center for Voting Opinion and Trends in Election Research. And this year, that is 2024, he completes 30 years of CVoter. So that's a remarkable achievement, and it's good that we have him here with us. And for over these 3 decades, he has established himself as one of the leading research groups of public opinion, apart from socio-economic, political, and development studies. He is president of various organizations that are associated with it, a speaker, mentor, coach, trainer, etc. And his passions include traveling. I guess he has to travel because of his work, reading, and cooking. Thank you and welcome to MxMLive, Yashwant. How have you been?
Thank you, Brahman. Glad to be here. It's amazing to get into a free-flowing kind of conversation, mostly on the research. Because generally 90% of the conversation in media, it's how the way they cook up and the way it cooks up. So within Indian sphere, it's always nice to discuss something much more academic, rigorous, and research to start with. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you very much. Your interests are cooking. So what's cooking in your office? I know you are doing a variety of things, but this is the election year. Tell me, every time there's an election, are you happy about it? Are there, tense moments? Gosh, this is another election. What the hell?
Well, as a passionate person about, being in the transitional area of research and journalism and data in between, it's always exciting. And not just in India. I mean, this is an election year because we are working on the US trackers and the UK polling has already started and so on and so forth. So it's a wonderful election year to observe in that way. But having said that, many times it's also a realization that the changes that are happening, not just in terms of research industry, but in the politics per se and around us, are we adopting for those changes quickly or not? That realization is also kind of sitting in. And it's not just about India. I also realize when I say this because I remember in 2008 when we were doing US panels on CATI, and then we in 12 elections, some of the online things started coming in, and Puritans were really angry in 2012 because online panels were considered completely unscientific because of the non-probability nature of that. But when we started doing 2016, we realized 99.9% of the work in US within 4 years has actually shifted from the probability-based CADI to non-probability-based online samples because they were available and people had started to come out with the scientific explanation of using that panel. So it's still no probability-based panel. There are only 2 probability-based panels, by the way, in entire US, So I realized that many a times when the idea has come, nobody can stop it. You have to jump on. It takes time. Sometimes you have to do the reverse engineering, but adaptability is important. So that is a constant question, whether are we changing fast enough to gauge all and, take into account all these changes that are happening around us.
Normally in these interviews, you have a rapid fire at the end of the interview, but I'm not going to do that because we need to get into more serious stuff. But just to kind of set the tone, I'm going to ask you a few rapid fire questions. So will it be Biden or Trump?
Trump, politically speaking, Trump right now. I mean, the numbers he is getting today. To look at the Super Tuesday, I don't know why exactly Nikki Haley is even in the race. I tweeted this morning, Trump plus 40, plus 50, plus 60. No, it's not his vote share. It is his lead over Nikki Haley. Can you imagine? And in the national numbers, he is right now leading over Biden by 4 points, which he was actually tailing by 3 points in 2016 to Clinton in actual numbers when he got elected winning the electoral college. So at this moment, Trump all the way.
Modi 400 plus or not?
Modi definitely 350 plus. 400 is a long shot. I mean, Modi plus his alliance. 350 is definitely enough. And that is simply because his alliance is right now absent is almost about 100 odd seats. So BJP is absent there. It's a question of getting if they can get hold of TDP or get hold of somebody in Tamil Nadu, then that possibility can be discussed. But at this point of time, I would not say impossible, but improbable.
Opinion polls, do you think they'll be right or wrong?
They will be right in picking the winner correctly. But the expectation from the exit of the opinion polls that they will be getting the seat share correct, that's a wrong expectation to start with, because seat share projection is not really in the gambit of the survey. Survey science starts and stops at the estimation of the vote share. That's about it. And the vote share estimate is telling that NDA is ahead. So they would be able to pick up the right winner, but in each and every state as well, as they have been doing, but unlikely that they will be getting that seat share of sort bang on. That's kind of unlikely.
All of us in the media who cover the media, and though I'm not in active news media any longer, but one of the things when we tell people that I'm a journalist, they say, "Gosh, you exit polls, your exit polls are never right. Your opinion polls are biased." What is one answer that you think we should give them, or you would like to give to people who are naysayers of your business?
It's just like the sales figure, every quarter. They give you what is selling, or election results, who is winning. But why that change is happening, that is something only with the survey can give you. The thing is that what are our expectations from the surveys and what we are using it for? Unfortunately, in Indian, the media particularly uses it for altogether different purpose. Just getting the number and, ranking it like as if these are the real results. No, they are not going into the dissecting of the issues and the communities and the age and the other factors, that the way as a society that we are evolving for any decision-making process, which are the significant aspect, that kind of serious analysis or analytics, that is absent over here. That is the real use and essence of the survey industry, which in the West, if you go, they always keep on doing it and every week they do it. That's another thing, the lack of regularity of polling in India, particularly by the media, that creates. So we do the trackers on a daily basis. We release it with the media trackers and other things. That's the reason that we want to let people get, used to it, so that it's much more like your blood pressure or the blood sugar checking thing. You do it every morning, right? You have to check it every morning if you are having symptoms. You just cannot be done with this only on the day you get hospitalized. So if you get it done on the day you are hospitalized, everybody is shocked. But if you are keeping a track of it, you can see the line changing, coming down or up, and you know precisely what is going wrong, where it is going wrong, and why it is going wrong at the right time, rather than getting a shock. Oh my God, how did this happen? That should not.
And then you, of course, have your HbA1c as well. So you have a 3-month tracker. You, of course, do the mood of the nation study, and that has been there for a while now, and you do capture the mood. But Yashwant, we are here today to also discuss something that I read about, and I wasn't there in person, but I read about the Indian the ISEC, the Indian Socio-Economic Classification, the new one that has been published recently. I know that it has not been embraced by all media organizations yet, or all associations yet, but the fact of the matter is that it is there now. It is there in public, and it has been well appreciated. And what I understand is that you are under the aegis of Dataeye Asia publishing a few studies overlaying this, which is what the COTN survey, uh, in economic survey, and a product oriented survey. So tell us more about that. And of course, you also mentioned about the dissecting data as against just the top line stuff, and
Right.
how this will help in giving that information.
First of all, we do the daily trackers now for almost like 15 years. We do a national representative sample in 11 language on a daily basis. And we are almost attaining to the tune of almost 500,000 samples in a year. That kind of quantum is there. And almost 90% of our instrument is socio-economic research, and media research. It is not political research. And that data is generally used by universities, the academics, the policy makers, and so on and so forth. And over the last so many years, I have been always intrigued by the implanted SEC use of, in India. When I say implanted, because you are aware of the first SEC that was used by the industry, education and occupation. These are the two things, because it was a Western concept that if you are educated more, you get into a better earning occupation,
Right.
and that will define your social mobility in upward direction. Now, come to think of it, that does that really work in India that way? No, because we know for sure that in India, however you look at it, your earning capacity, capability, or as a household earning has actually nothing to do with your educational qualification so far, till the point of time we converted from an agrarian economy to a service economy. I mean, in terms of GDP, the contribution of service sector, I mean, particularly the Y2K happened, and we are into the BPO capital of the world, and blah, 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 blah. Till that point of time, was the education an indicator for the right occupation and the right earning that will give you a kind of market capacity, right? I was joking with some of my friends. We were in, having a pan. I mean, I come from Banaras in Delhi. Whenever I go, we go khana na khake. We went for a pan. And those who know Delhi, there is a couple of very good spots, Claridge's, and then in a CP in front of the Regal, and blah, 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 blah. So two of my very good academic friends, both PhDs from the Ivy Leagues, and they are professor, in that way. And they mentioned this to me that, I'm a PhD holder from an Ivy League. I'm a professor, and I'm sure this Panwala is making more money than me. And no, it's not said with the kind of looking down on any profession or like that, but simply mentioning a point that how much structured way that the money part is in our jobs, barring that private sector and some of that positioning, to the earning sector on the bottom of the pyramid. And that is something which has been kind of intriguing me for really, really long time. That is this the SEC which goes very nicely in the West, and is it like working nicely in the East as well? Then obviously NCCS happened because they realized it is not working. And in NCCS, we deployed education of the chief wage earner, and then different things that you have in your households, right? From the AC to fridge to the color TV to four-wheeler to two-wheeler, how many things you have. And then we realized over a period of time, particularly during the pandemic and post-pandemic era, these things, 15 years back, electricity connection itself was a big thing. That, okay, you may have a fridge or TV only if you have an electricity. But did we realize that in the last 10 years, this electricity connection thing is gone? It's no more there. Because that as a criteria is gone, the fan as a criteria is gone, TV as a criteria is gone, because of the things that got changed in terms of economy, in terms of availability, in terms of people purchasing it. Today, if you look at that 11-point list of the things that you have in your home, uh, again, jokingly, don't take it otherwise, but it actually looked down like in our Purab mein Dahej ki list, whether you get these items in the Dahej of a boy or not, in the villages. And to realize that these items actually come to a unemployed youth who is getting married, just like that, even their home, does that make it good enough list to be classified as SEC A or SEC B? So, of course, things change, and things change at such a rapid way that the system wasn't working anymore. You talk to anybody in the research industry and you will realize this SEC AB classification are not really telling you what the actual situation is on the ground. And in the C, D, and E classification, you have so many of them earning so well, but just because their occupation and just because their education is not fitting in your psyche of, high performing, high paying occupation as such. So they are kind of marked into C, D, E categories, and you are still not getting a tap into what kind of purchasing power they carry with them. So a lot many things were changing, things were becoming obsolete, things have become obsolete, and they are not really helping us, helping the decision makers to give the right sense of data. It doesn't really mirror the actual situation of the society. If you are launching a product, or if you are trying to plan the media, whatever you wish to do with the data, even if you are a policy maker, and we do, by the way, regular research for the Economic Advisory Council at Niti Aayog. So we know what we are talking about, and they know, because their scales, their batteries are very different. They are least bothered about their NCCS or SEC, because they know what the policy level interventions they need to do at which level. So a lot of things have been going on parallelly in different universes. Just that our industry in the media buying industry and the market research industry, I'm glad that they did it, because it was the common sense thing to do, the intelligent thing to do. And I'm glad that they are doing it right.
But isn't it, as an aside, isn't it crazy? Isn't it sad that here you have, this is not a government organization. These are not government players. These are private players who obviously you assume that they think right, and they are just not on the ball. And you can't have a socio-economic classification system which is not dynamic enough. For instance, even now, ISEC, which is out, it should perhaps change after 2 or 3 years, or be as dynamic as possible.
Absolutely, Pradyuman. And for your viewers, it's important to understand that the three major things which are bringing stability to the ISEC is that for the first time, industry is mapping the female literacy as a factor into this thing, because the highest educated female in the household, that is a component which is going to drive home the point of the household situation, their capacity, their movement, social mobility, and everything that comes along with that. Few things. Number one, for example, when the SEC or NCCS happened, in the West, post Second World War, female as a working force was the important part of the household. So as a chief wage earner, big number of females were there. But in India, it wasn't the case. Being a patriarchal society, and female workforce in the society is in any case less than the males. And now not adding any gender equation into that thing meant that you were only getting along a male-oriented factor in your research. It was heavily skewed towards the males, number one. Number two, in the upward mobility, 30 years back, we were 3%, less than 3% middle class. Right now, we are talking about 35% middle class. And Pradyuman, we know what is middle class. There is no one single definition. Anybody who is above the BPL, who is not BPL is middle class. In that way, if you look at it, there are 50 shades of middle class. And the middle class is the most dynamic section of our Indian society. Everybody from a lower middle class to upper middle class keeps on aiming to go one step up. One important critical thing which I want to mention, because as a researcher, as a chief wage earner in our households, till the point of time a father is working and not retired, the kids do not say that they are the chief wage earner or they are the mukhya of the parivar, as we call it. So there are always instances, huge number of instances, where a low earning father who is investing everything into the education of his kids, and the kids are earning way better than the father, is still that doesn't reflect in the SEC classification or NCCS classification, because the chief wage earner, as we call it, happens to be the father. So that huge momentum upswing of the middle class families, where the kids are better educated than the previous generation and earning multiple times more than the previous generation, they are not getting really seen as the chief wage earner in the family till the point of time father is retired. So these are the value system and intrinsic things that are practical problems on the ground. I don't know why it took so long for people to take into the female as a gender factor, and also as a male, and the highest male member, a highest educated male member of the family, because that can happen more. I mean, the kid can be more educated, kid can be better earning than the person who is considered as the chief wage earner in that way, in the society.
This discussion is not about the ISEC survey, but just a couple of points. One is that we are continuing to dwell upon the fact that education, or the amount of education, is perhaps an indicator of wealth and propensity to buy. Second thing is the women's employment rate in an Uttar Pradesh, maybe low, but that in, say, a state like Maharashtra will be far higher.
Exactly.
So yeah. I'm saying even that is different. So is there as somebody who's been doing researching day in and day out, do you think that even a pan India research yardstick is perhaps incorrect?
Yeah, absolutely. You are bang on correct, Pradim, because when we were looking, and one question that we ask about in our daily omnibus is about the consumption of the media, that their generic media consumption on the news and current affairs, where it is coming from. And it's funny to see that number one, that post-pandemic, the traditional media has gone down and the digital media has taken up. That's no surprise in that. But what is surprising, if I tell you that the digital consumption, media consumption is highest and multiple times higher in the so-called Bimaru state than compared to the so-called wealthier and educated states. So if you look into the data as a percentage population within Bihar, people who are consuming digital media is multiple times more than people who are consuming digital media in Kerala. And I'm not talking about the absolute number, because obviously everybody knows Bihar population is more than the Kerala, but I'm talking about the proportion of the population.
Absolutely. So, I think what you said is absolutely correct. So let's get on to the study that you are doing, and what is it? What is the overlay that you're going to be providing us? I'm told that it's going to be out sometime this month, in the month of March. So give us highlights of that.
Well, it's a continuous process, as I mentioned. The consumer mood of the nation is going to be a continuous thing, just like the mood of the nation that we do. And the thing is, we are not just capturing the brand index, brand equity, or brand positioning, but also the overall the economic status and other consumption status, the way the consumer confidence needs to be mapped, number one. Number two, the indicators with the ISEC which are there, we are also doing a comparison of NCCS and ISEC, and we definitely know that female literacy is a much bigger indicator of upward mobility. They are already established in the data. There is no two question about it. And once we start looking everything from this new angle, through the glasses of the ISEC, I think the data is going to speak in a much fabulous manner. and we have already started getting the indicators of that sort. Say, for example, the latent force of the females, which are actually, when we talk about the female working force, which is sitting at home, highly educated females, but their their attributes in the decision making process of the household, how does that make an impact? That is one of the things that we are looking into. Second thing, that in the contextual society of the high optimism, we are generally always get this sentiment that things are tough, but it will get better. So when you are looking from the market perspective, looking at India, that things are tough, but they will get better. There are multiple things that come into play, which are from policy level as well as market level. For example, 800 million people, Pradyuman, which are being given the free ration right now by the government. And the government has said that they will continue to do it till 2025. Mr. Prime Minister said that we did it so that people coming out of poverty don't slide back into the poverty. Now, if you look into the number of absolute power or extreme poverty, think that is roughly about 300 million. So we are looking at 500 million people who are not really poor, but getting a ration. So if I flip it thing into your analysis in a different way, a person's income goes maximum into food coverage when you earn, education, and the third thing is the health. If you are looking into the pie, the person where it is spent in a family person. A big chunk of those 500 million people who are getting the ration, that is a kind of saving as far as their earning is concerned. Now, is that getting reflected at this point of time in their spending? Not really, for two reasons. That post-pandemic, everybody is kind of a bit reserved, in terms of spending and everything, but they want to make themselves comfortable. And then the other Labharti things on the similarly, which come as an abstract, but does that not help at household level with more money which is being left with them? Is it reflected in your saving things and other things? No, not right now, because we are just out of a black swan pandemic. Things have been rebooted at the individual household level. Me, you, everybody got affected and impacted by that. To expect that within 2 years, the entire society and their spending pattern will become normal is a wrong expectation to start with. And as I mentioned, that these just like 50 shades of gray, 50 layers of the middle class, there is an upwardly mobile, optimistic middle class. Each layer is aiming to be the next layer within 1 or 2 or 3 years. This is why when you mentioned that even these SCCs or the even ISEC, they need to be dynamic, because if you are unable to change yourself, you are not going to be able to map these changes that are happening on the ground. So a lot of the things are happening, and we are just trying to measure all these patterns. The seasonal migration, the migrant workers, as we call it, your bottom of the pyramid, as we call it in the rural India. Is middle class any more urban phenomena? No. There is a bigger middle class in the rural India than in the urban India. Everybody knows it. Everybody wants to map it. But it's like a blind man's elephant, Pradeep. So far the Indian market, har koi apna pakad ke, that the way they look it in the smaller part of the elephant, they describe the elephant that way. Nobody is taking a back step. Okay, can I look at the big elephant from a distance and then decide how to go about tackling the elephant? That has been absent.
There are various uses of surveys such as these, and your consumer mood of the nation study that's going to be out. One is, of course, to understand your consumer, and that's a very critical feature. You can tailor your content as per that. You can tailor your political parties can tailor their leadership as per that, etc., etc. But here, and also given the fact that we are MxM and our readers are the advertising ecosystem, the advertiser ecosystem, one of the major factors is, of course, how is it going to help us look, and to use a socio-economic term, sexy, to the advertiser. Uh, and how do you think will this play a role with the kind of findings that you have?
Well, the targeting would be much better with the new ISEC. Say for example, the SEC, I mean, the first tier is the first tier, literally, between the, when you look into the 6 to 10, 1 to 6 kind of a tiering, you will get, when you say this part is good for that particular product, it will be much more precise linking. Right now, the categorization have become so broad in the NCCS and earlier the SEC as well, and not just broad, but incorrectly broad. That is even more important. So the layering of the segment were not coherent, not really telling the true picture, not showing the true picture, and it was easier to waste a lot of your resources because you are aiming at a certain pocket, but you are just coming down a huge big front with your marketing and advertising strategy and not getting adequate return of your investment as an advertiser or as a marketer. So I think this further layering down classifications of the society will help all of us, not just to understand the buying patterns, not just to understand the way the families or the society is movement is happening in different layers, but also for each of us into understanding where we wish to focus, which kind of product we wish to focus and map it, and what kind of strategy we want to use in terms of media as well as sales to aim at my right market, aim at my right set of consumer.
It's very interesting, and obviously the one has to wait for your findings to be out, and not just once, but over a period of time. So just to kind of get it once again, the periodicity, it's going to be, of course, a continuous survey, but how often will you come out with your results? And I know this is a commissioned study, so it may not be available to the public at large, but how often will you be able to, will you be giving it to your, to whoever's commissioned it from you?
Well, certain indicators will be more frequent, even on indicators, economic indicators will be available on a fortnightly or even monthly basis, but there will be certainly quarterly reports, not just in terms of the overall consumption and consumer confidence index. And as you mentioned, that within India, it's not one big market, but there are going to be different parts of markets and different states as standalone entity, and there are going to be differences in that. But also in terms of what we call now is, obviously, the seasons are being defined as the festivities season when the sales are propped up and like that. But I guess that we are moving beyond those sales season as well. The decisions which are being made for a certain thing might be delayed for sure due to our cultural and the value system, that I might like to buy my new car during the Navratris. But I also sense that people are not going to wait till Navratri as well. So there are many changes that are happening, and those kind of changes, value and cultural changes that we are mapping, they also need to be released on the regular interval. And of course, the routine thing is going to be there for the brand mapping in terms of the top of the mind recall, the actual purchase, the probable next purchase. Those kind of things will be there, but you can safely assume that as far as the consumer confidence and other indicators are concerned, there would be a quarterly report for sure.
That sounds very interesting, and we are looking forward to this. Before we let you go, tell me, since we are talking about the mood of the nation is political. So, and as far as this study is concerned, would you say for consumers in general, for the media industry in general, because obviously we depend on subscription revenue, which is of course not very much for linear television players and print, etc. But we depend on advertising. Will it be Achhe Din? Will Achhe Din be coming at all? अच्छे दिन आने वाले हैं?
I think अच्छे दिन आएंगे. I am a die-hard optimist in that way. It is just that how we are coding this entire game altogether. I think we still have to figure a right set of solution for the digital consumption and digital advertisement in that way. I still believe that it is not being properly defined or properly taken care of. The brand, I think the consumer has become platform agnostic of sort. They are consuming the same sources, but the platforms are become different. They are no more concerned. I'm watching it on a linear or a digital or my handheld or my system or on a main TV and so on and so forth. So a lot of discussion would happen officially and unofficially what kind of things people are consuming in media. It is becoming much more democratized in not just in terms of content, not just in terms of consumption, but also in terms of content creation. It has already become democratized. You might have already noticed, it is booming like anything. And while it is booming like anything, I think at some point of time, there would be also aggregation of sort in terms of cluster areas where people are aiming or consuming that content. So a lot of dynamic way of consumption things are happening. People are dynamic. Somehow we have to try to be at least equally dynamic in mapping that as well. If not, then we are going to blame people that they are not telling the right thing. But the thing is that people are not to be blamed. If we are unable to read, then we would be blamed for our failure to read the correctly.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Yashwant Deshmukh, for spending quality time with us, explaining in detail as to what we are going to be in for. Of course, we'll look forward to the findings over a period of time, and I'm sure that will help in understanding the mind of the consumer. Thank you very much for this interview. Thank you very much.